What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one will break down what's going on with the overall market and what you should be watching for moving forward. I'm also going to talk about some very important levels to look out for and what's going on with the news coming out for the markets. But before I break things down about all this information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And don't forget about the Webull link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 or free stocks. Anyways, let's talk about the market, what's going on so far. SPY is up 0.8% as of right now. Got a very nice pump in the morning, hitting our resistance to a T. Right over here at this 447.5 area. That's the area I had marked as the next level on SPY. That's where SPY went to. And we came very, very close to 448. Very, very nice looking pump. Then after that, SPY got a rejection, started to cool off for about an hour and a half, coming all the way down to support just at around 445, a little bit under that. Now, if SPY had broken below 444, it's going to likely come down to fill this gap to about 442. So 444 is a very, very important pivot level for you guys to watch for. And if anything, it didn't really come down there. It actually held up quite nicely. And we got a nice bounce off this 445 level. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. Now, to add on to this, as you can see, we got this rejection here, another rejection here, and now we're starting to fight this resistance, which happens to be around this 446.25 zone, around this zone just about here, and that is what's starting to slow SPY down just a little bit. You can see it right now in real time. You break above this, and this thing does have potential to push up. I think we could see the market try to hold up nicely during power hour, so watch it all very, very carefully. So far, SPY is showing some nice strength, holding up quite nicely after we got some very nice looking CPI numbers. But I want to remind you all that we have another piece of data dropping for tomorrow. That's going to be the PPI report. Now, is this as big as CPI? Not necessarily, but this tends to be a leading indicator of CPI. What is the PPI? It's basically like CPI except from the producer side, and this is going to be very important for the markets. We want to see what the PPI report tells us. We also have initial jobless claims 1 hour before the market opens. So all this data is going to be dropping again, and if you feel a little bit uncomfortable with all this data dropping, you could secure some profits if you want on many options and trades. If not, if you're willing to hold through it, then be my guest. It's really your choice. But I just want to remind you all, PPI is dropping tomorrow morning, and then we have initial jobless claims. This is all going to be very important, very impactful for the markets, so please be ready for all of this. The odds do favor a good PPI that could help the market hold up. And then after that, for Friday, we have the big bank earnings, which is going to be very impactful for the market too. All right, so be well aware of all this data. Now let's just talk about some more levels to look out for. And by the way, the news is still very positive about how the market's holding up very, very nicely after getting some lighter than expected inflationary reports. So looking at SPY, it's now trying to break above this 446.25 level. You could watch this on the 5-minute time frame, then just like see how it's moving. Another really good strategy that works would be switching between the 5-minute and like looking at the 30 minutes time frame simultaneously. That could work very well. But for the bigger trend, you want to look at the 4-hour time frame. So what you'd be doing is looking at the 4-hour just to know how the trend is looking. So for example, right now the 4-hour is still wide open on the MACD, still looking strong. So there's not really a sign of weakness on the chart that's very significant on the bigger trend. And then on the 30-minute time frame, so on my right side of the screen, the 30-minute was looking a little bit weaker as we got this rejection right here, but it's not that bad. It's actually very tight for the time being. What that tells us is we had a really nice pump up in the morning, lots of volatility, lots of strength. It cooled off just a little bit, and now it's starting to try to curl. And there's not much like very weak momentum for it, but after all, it's not like completely crossed just yet. So we need a little bit more confirmation on the 30 minutes to turn a lot more bullish. And then on the 5-minute, this could have been like a really good like call entry right about here. But if anything, it held up quite nicely as well. So which support is very important and resistance. I already broke down support and resistance levels, but I also want to add that on the 3 minutes time frame for SPY, you can also look at this. We managed to bounce very close to where our 200 EMA was. I think it's the 3-minute or should be the 5-minute. It's got to be one of those two. No, it was the 3 minutes, I believe. That's where we got a nice bounce. So we're going to be watching support around those levels. So watch your 15, 200 EMAs very carefully and switch between time frames to see which one is more adequate for the timing. Right now, we're trying to hover above the 50 EMA on the 5-minute time frames, starting to show some strength. The market is still holding up nicely. We got some good CPI numbers. So we're going to be watching the support and resistance level. So for supports, don't forget to be watching 445, 444, 444.07 as support. And if those fail, let's watch 442. For resistance, we're going to be watching the major resistance, the really significant one compared to this one, is first we have to get above 446.25, break that, so we're going to be watching 447.5, another retest of this area. If it breaks that, 448.75 could come, a very, very nice pump, and potentially even 450 after that. Overall, it's looking it's looking strong overall, and it's looking quite nice so far. Looking at Tesla, this is once again trying to hold up. It's a little bit weak compared to the markets. We got some negative news that came out, unfortunately. I was hoping we'd see like 280 by the morning. We actually saw 276 right when we opened, so it came just short of like 278 to 280. But then after it rejected, we saw Tesla just trading sideways, cooling off just a little bit, coming down to like 272, but bouncing off that. So it still is a little bit weak. The volume is not that horrible. It actually improved a little bit. But what's worth noting is the news has been very negative about Tesla once again, causing it to slow down. And on top of that, Tesla was not getting a lot of like aggressive buying pressure like it was getting a couple of weeks ago. It's been slowing down recently. I do think it's going to come back up when we approach earnings. So maybe going into next week, I think it's going to be a better week for Tesla, at least for the first half of the week until after earnings. Then earnings will dictate how this thing moves. For Aapl, and by the way, it's just trading sideways on Tesla. It's not really doing anything too significant. For support watch, 272 and now 273.35 as our supports. For resistance watch, 274.5 to 275. That entire zone is resistance. If it gets above 275 and breaks this high from right here, I'm going to be expecting it to push up to this imbalance at 276. There's a good chance it's going to try to push up to this imbalance at 276 anyways, maybe going into like later on. But just to be safe, you want to watch for confirmation and a break above 275. For Aapl, you could see Aapl bounced almost perfectly off our support at 188.5, so this level right here. And now Apple's forming potential inverse head and shoulders, and it is set for a potential push-up to get above 190 very soon. Overall, it looks more bullish than bearish. It's holding up quite nicely, so we're going to be watching 190. Could Aapl break above 190 and hold it? If it does so, you're going to be watching resistance at 191 flat. Also, a little bit of resistance around like this 190.7 area. And then if it breaks 191, watch 191.7. For the triple Q, we're going to be watching, can this thing get a big break to the upside? Can this thing actually hold above this 372.8 area? That is a very important zone because that was the previous high it made. If it manages to break that, we're going to be watching 374 and potentially 375 after that. So we also have a resistance right here that's going to be kind of significant. And besides that, it's still holding up quite nicely. If it breaks down, watch 372.5, 372, 371 right about here, and then 370.17 and 370 as supports. If those fails, watch 368. I think it's going to try to hold up quite nicely and just trade around this range between 372 to 374 and just hold up going into the close. Nvda was very nice. We actually completed this inverse head and shoulders we were talking about not too long ago. Right, we had this inverse head and shoulder structure. We were watching this potential target. I was leaning more bullish on Nvda for 440. Came very close to it. We actually hit 439.29. Very, very close. I'm going to be watching the video hold between 435 to 440 for the time being. Maybe get a retest of 440, but it's looking quite nice so far. Microsoft got a nice bounce as well. We were anticipating this. We were talking about our resistance zone and a retest of about 340. Came very, very close. Nice curl on it. Nice gap fill, which we were talking about earlier. Looks quite nice. AMD is green. And last but not least, Amazon and Meta. Amazon got a very, very nice break to the upside. Got a nice bounce from this level. I was talking about Amazon either bouncing off 125 or bouncing off this low right here. That's what I mentioned yesterday. And today we got more confirmation of that bounce continuing. And then after getting this bounce and Amazon holding up, we're going to be watching, can this thing continue to push up to 131? I think it's very possible because on the smaller time frames, I think I saw something very nice looking. We got a nice kind of like cup and handle like formation that's developing. We could see this thing make its way up to 131 very soon as well. So it's worth noting, holding up quite nicely. And for Meta, continuing to remain very strong. It may cool off a little bit though. I don't know if the cool off is done or not, because the thing about Meta is on the different time frames, it has been sitting on a negative divergence. It has this imbalance down here at 300, and there's an unfilled gap around 298. It's worth mentioning that Meta could get a slight cool off first before this thing tries to continue higher. So if it does pull back a bit, that's going to be completely fine. But don't forget, we have an unfilled gap all the way up to 320, which Meta is going to eventually fill. So a slight pullback would be completely healthy for it to cool off. And then this thing starts pumping for like 320, 330, and etc. I would be buying a lot of calls if this thing does dip like quite a bit in a short period of time. I think it has a lot of potential and more upside to come nonetheless, even if it does dip a little bit. All right, so please be well aware that tomorrow we have the PPI numbers coming out and initial jobless claims all before the market opens. If you want to hold through that, that is your choice. If you want to secure profits, just to be safe on lots of your trades, your just like swing trades, your day trades, or whatever, however long you've been holding your options, that is your choice as well. I just want to let you guys know that. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, everyone. Watch these levels, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Market to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.